Okay. Evening, guys. Hello, hello. Okay. Evening, guys. Hello, hello. Right. So we're obviously hi guys. Firstly, good evening. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. So we're obviously doing things slightly different this evening in that rather than just going live on Facebook, we're actually restreaming using a program called Restream so that we can use slides. Okay, because what we're talking about tonight is a little bit easier in that capacity. So, if everyone who's joining on Facebook, could you just let me know that you can hear me okay, that the sound is good, that the signal is good, that everything is working well? If you could just let me know in the comments or with some thumbs up, just let me know that everything is good and everything's working well, just so we know that the technology isn't letting us down. We all good? Hopefully, we're all good. Right, okay, we'll kick off. So, if everyone, like I said before, if could just give me a barrage of emojis, smiley faces, thumbs up, just to get this video to the top of the Facebook page so that everyone who's trying to find it can find it easily. That would be amazing. So tonight, like I said, we're using slides. Where are we? Oh, hang on, bear with me. Sorry, guys. Uh, we're using slides, okay, because what we're going to be talking about is a little bit more in depth, and it will just make it easier to use slides compared to not using them like in the previous sessions. Okay, so what I want to talk about is kind of an all-encompassing unified theory of health promotion. Okay, unified theory of how we stay healthy, how we optimize our physical and mental health, how we maximize our longevity in terms of a daily, applicable, sustainable kind of blueprint or framework. Okay. And I guess the maxim or the calling card for this is that quote there at the bottom. Okay. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellent health, therefore, is not a singular act, but a habit. So that's a beautiful quote that I think originally came from Aristotle. And it's so true because excellent health isn't just taking a herbal medicine or eating well or exercising regularly. It's not a single thing. Okay. It's what we do again and again and again and again. And tonight I want to talk about what, to my mind, from the evidence from 20 years of research in this area is the most robust, the most kind of powerful evidence-based blueprint that I know of. Okay. Um, and just to put into context where we're coming from here. So when I was working in cancer research, okay, when I was working in cancer research and in clinical research outside of cancer, my professor and I were involved in researching and trying to delineate, break down, understand the most powerful frameworks, the most powerful models for complete health transformation. Okay, that doesn't really leave any stone unturned. What does the most advanced research shows? What do we need to do on a daily basis, dragging this out of the science, out of the dusty medical journals, but and into real life setting? Okay, if we are to target and optimize all of the things that we all aspire to, what do we all aspire to? We want to feel young and vital and energized. We want to be healthy and strong. We want to be free of symptoms. If we are living with an illness, we want to be able to manage that effectively. We want to reduce our risk factors for developing illnesses that are going to reduce our quality and quantity of life. Okay. We want to maximize our ability to live a long, healthy life. We want to feel buoyant and jubilant and enthusiastic in our mind. We want to feel contented and happy. Okay, these are all things that we all want, that we all aspire to without exception. And there are some brilliant models out there over the last 15-20 years. There have been some brilliant, very advanced models and blueprints for how do we wrap that, all of those goals, all of those objectives, all of those aims, how do we wrap those up into one unified blueprint? If you live like this, if you follow this blueprint in its entirety, it will give you everything you need to fulfill those objectives. Okay. And all of the blueprints that we analyzed and we reviewed and that we critiqued over 20 years, 15 or 20 years, some were very good, some were very bad, some, were great in some areas and weak in others. None of them were perfect. Okay. And nothing's perfect. In health, nothing is perfect. But through looking at all of these different blueprints and cherry picking the best bits, removing the things that weren't very helpful, my professor and I came up with what I believe now is universally kind of the ultimate model for realizing the highest levels of physical health, emotional health, well-being, disease prevention, and longevity. Okay. And I say that from a complete place of transparency, because this is based upon research. Okay, this is what the research shows us. It's what the research tells us. Okay, so this is about a unified blueprint for living and realizing all of these qualities. Okay, and before we get into what it looks like, it's worth just revisiting, just going back to that statistic that we spoke about right at the very start of the Ayurvedic self-care challenge, which was what? The 80-20% statistic. Okay, which is that 80% of everything that happens to us in the context of health, longevity, and disease is down to how we choose to live our life. Okay, so we have an 85% chance of maximizing our ability to prevent disease, maximizing our longevity, maximizing our physical health, through changing the way we live. Okay, only 20% of our illnesses, our predispositions, our risk factors are genetic. Okay, well, so what that essentially means is that we have autonomy, we have empowerment. Okay, we're not sitting ducks. We're not sitting here waiting for illness to strike. We're not sitting here waiting for age to catch us up. We're saying, if I adopt these approaches, if I implement this evidence-based framework, I can harness that 80% statistic. Okay, but we have to be proactive. Okay, in this capacity, we have to be proactive. Okay, we have to be what the science, what the research calls outliers. Okay, outliers are people who break the norm, who buck the trend, who become different, who do different, who experience exceptional health and vitality in their 7th, 8th, 9th decade, or whatever decade. Okay, and it's that that commonsensical but often misunderstood concept that to be different, we have to do different. Okay, if we do the same as everyone else, okay, if we live our lives the same as everyone else, if we eat the same kind of food, if we adopt the same kind of lifestyle, okay, we're going to be the same as everyone else. Okay, as it stands now, life expectancy in Britain is about 78 for a man, about 80 for a woman. Okay, statistically, the last 5 years of that period are in failing health. So on average, we get about 75 years of good health. Okay, 75 years of healthy of lifespan. Is that acceptable? Is that what we should aspire to? Is that enough? Okay, I think that's an abomination. Okay, there's not one part of me that can accept or acknowledge that. Okay, because we know we have it in our capacity to be in fit, vital, energetic, youthful health well into our 90s and beyond. Okay, the most advanced DNA research, the most advanced genetic research shows us that we can experience that is our reality. Okay, but to make that your reality and my reality, we have to do things differently. Okay, if you want that to be your reality, if you want to be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years of age and be the fittest, healthiest, happiest version of yourself in mind and body, you have to do things differently. Okay, that's what all of the research tells us. We have to change the lens through which we view our life and the way we live it. And that is the biggest kind of driving passion, in my professional life, is how do we facilitate that? Okay, if we have to be different, okay, if to experience a different reality in health and longevity requires us to do different, how do we do different in a way that's sustainable, easy, evidence-based, effective, safe, and all-encompassing? Okay, and that is, one of the reasons, actually the main reason, before we look at the model, going back to when we first developed the Ayurvedic mentor, this is why we developed it. Okay, because when we were running clinical trials, when I was running clinical trials at the hospital, we were constantly looking at what is the best way of empowering and inspiring and motivating people to change their behavior long term. And we looked at one-to-one support, we looked at in-person group support, we looked at telephone support, we looked at online support. Okay, and online interactive support programs are about fivefold more effective at empowering people to do the right thing and to sustain that long term. Okay, fivefold improvement. Okay, why? Because it provides reactive support. It allows you to access the content you need 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And you have control over how you access and how you consume that knowledge, which is why we package this. What, the motivation for me to create the Ayurvedic mentor was based upon those clinical trials. Okay, because I know that if anyone here is listening to this and they want to become the best version of themselves, in their physical health, their mental health, their personal development, their levels of happiness, whatever it may be, it needs knowledge, it needs empowerment, but it needs more than that. It needs motivation, it needs inspiration, it needs support, it needs advice, it needs interaction. Okay, so that they become habitual. And the whole aim of the Ayurvedic mentor was to provide kind of a platform, an online platform for doing that. Okay, and what I'm talking about tonight, the model we're going to explore in a minute, comes from a series in the Ayurvedic mentor called the Self-Care Celebration Week, which teases this apart, over the course of five, a whole week. Okay, so I know loads of people have joined today. So those of you who have joined the Ayurvedic mentor, do check out that Self-Care Celebration Week. But tonight I want to touch upon why this is so powerful. Okay, so the reason I wanted to use slides here is because some of these diagrams look really quite confusing and quite full on, but I want to talk them through and show why that model there, that pyramid model, if we look at the last 20 years of research around what allows us to live the happiest, healthiest, longest life and maximize our ability to prevent disease, all of that research falls within that model you can see on the screen there. Okay, and tonight I want to talk through why, okay, and how. So it's a pyramid which starts at the bottom. So level 1, then level 2, then level 3, then level 4. Okay, and the pyramid model is based upon structural support. Okay, imagine you were building a house. You could build a house with the strongest walls, with the strongest roof, with the best content. But if the foundations of the house are weak, it will never last. It will never stay up. And it's the same with our self-care practices. It's the same with our ability to become exceptional, to become outliers. We've got to get the foundation in place. The foundation comes in 4 primary mechanisms: nourishment, so diet, lifestyle, mental well-being, and individualized disease prevention. Then we move up to something that is absolutely sacrosanct to me, which is the Paleolithic genome. I'll talk about that in a minute. The next level is a kind of, what we call Hikigai or Dharma, because it's so predictive of health and longevity. I'll cover that in a minute. And then the fourth, the peak of the pyramid, is called reactive health, okay, or the village herbalist model, which is your husband comes down with a tension headache, or you come down with a really bad sinusitis or constipation, or you can't sleep, knowing how to manage that reactively. Okay, if we've got all of that content into our life on a weekly or daily basis, it's everything. Okay, particularly if we're supporting that with a community, with like I say, reactive advice. A big part of the Ayurvedic mentor is obviously the Facebook group, where you can say, how do I customize this for me, or I can't use that herb because I'm taking this medicine, or how do I change this, that, or the other. So if we've got that model embedded around online reactive support and peer-to-peer support, it's the most powerful framework we have. Okay, so the foundation of the pyramid. Okay, nourishment, mental well-being or emotional mastery, lifestyle practices, and individualized disease prevention. Okay, I'm just going to talk through what these are all about. Okay, so emotional mastery is one of the most powerful. I'm just going to check the Facebook page, guys. Hang on, bear with me. I'm just going to look at the make sure everyone's here. Hi, guys. Everyone's joining. Diane, Julie, Samantha, Lisa, Anna. I hope everyone is well. Welcome, guys. So, emotional mastery is one of the most beautiful, empowered, life-changing components of Ayurveda. It's called emotional mastery. Okay. And if someone said to me, you could give up, or you have to give up every part of your Ayurvedic lifestyle bar one, what would you keep? I would keep the emotional mastery techniques. Okay. These are techniques that I was very fortunate to learn at a young age, and they change the entire perspective with which we view and experience life. Okay, because anyone here who's read the Bhagavad Gita, okay, let me know in the comments if you've read the Bhagavad Gita, kind of the most sacred text of the within the Ayurvedic framework. Emotional mastery is based upon the concept of how do we live and how do we experience contentment and happiness and joy and peace, irrespective and independent of what is going on outside of our body. So, whether we're succeeding or failing, whether our careers are flying or deteriorating, whether our relationships are working well or whether they're breaking down, whether we're sick or whether we're healthy, whether we have abundant levels of money or whether we don't, how can we sustain a level of joy and happiness and contentment and peace independent of those variables? Can you imagine the significance of that, where your emotional well-being in its entirety is built from within, comes from within, and has no bearing on what's happening on outside of you? Okay, it's one of the most powerful concepts that the Eastern traditions, the Buddhist traditions, the Vedic traditions, the Tibetan traditions, one of the most powerful concepts they give us. Okay, because if your happiness and contentment and peace is dependent upon outside things, you can always lose those outside things, which means you have no control over your emotional well-being. The concept of emotional mastery is, how do we change that? How do we cultivate autonomy in our happiness? Okay. And it uses techniques like detachment. Okay. The most powerful psychological tool we have anywhere in any discipline, anywhere in the world, is detachment. Okay. Where you experience life, and an example of this, I'm sure everyone's probably will recognize, is, say you're sat in a car in a really bad traffic jam, you need to get back home quick, and you can feel your mood deteriorating, you're getting angry and angrier and more frustrated. There's a part of you that can watch yourself doing that. There's a part of you that can say, there's me getting angry, there's me getting frustrated, there's me getting irrational. So there's the participant in the emotional response, and there's the observer of it. Okay, and that observer is always there, almost like a third party watching how you are responding. And that is who we connect with. Okay, in the Vedic traditions, that's that detachment, the ability to watch our place in the world from a place of detachment, so that if something really good happens or really bad happens, it doesn't shake us in the way it otherwise would. Comes, with that comes the practices like non-judgment, ahimsa, non-violence, serving people. Okay, so emotional mastery is fundamental to this model, because if we have a super healthy body, a brilliant diet, we're exercising loads, sleeping brilliantly, if we're sad, if we are depressed, if we're lonely, if we're unhappy, if we're discontented, we're never going to reach our potential. Okay, so the emotional mastery practices are sacrosanct. Okay, and again, those of you who recently joined the Ayurvedic Mentor, we have a whole series devoted to the emotional mastery technique, so check that out. Okay, the second pillar of the foundation is nourishment. Okay, and that's obvious. Okay, we know that the single biggest predictor, or the single biggest factor that impacts upon the health of our cells, and therefore our tissues, and therefore our organs, and therefore our whole body, is the food we put into our body. Okay, our cells are the sum total of what we consume every day via the nutrients we eat. Okay, but the key point here is nutritional breadth. Okay, in that a healthy diet only becomes healthy when it has the breadth of nutrients in its entirety. Okay, and that's why the reason, and again, I spent over 10 years working on research projects analyzing different dietary frameworks, different dietary models, different diets and nutrition plans. Okay, and without exception, with absolute honesty and sincerity, the most profound and most effective nutritional framework I've ever come across, and I say this with absolute sincerity, is the 6 tastes of Ayurveda. Okay, the reason for that is that the Ayurvedic way of eating is based upon, at every meal, consuming foods from all of the 6 primary tastes: sweet foods, salty foods, sour foods, bitter foods, astringent foods, and pungent foods. Why is that so important? It's so important because what the clinical research shows is that if every day you are consuming foods from those food groups, those tastes, not only is it virtually impossible to avoid nutrient deficiencies, but it allows you to get all of the nutrients that are specific to those individual tastes. Okay. So a lot of people, so sweet food doesn't mean Mars bars and chocolate. It means sweet foods are things like whole grains, pastas, healthy oils, healthy fats, nuts, seeds, animal produce, dairy, all of these kinds of things. Lots of people have lots of sweet foods. Lots of people have lots of salty foods, quite a lot of pungent foods, onions, garlics, but a lot of people don't have many bitter foods: kale, chard, pak choi, courgettes. A lot of people don't have lots of astringent foods, things like legumes, pulses, pomegranates, peas. Okay, so if we're having loads of healthy food, but we're not having food from a certain taste, we're missing a fundamental part. Okay, so healthy nutrition is the bedrock of health, and healthy nutrition is dependent upon optimal nutrient delivery. And optimal nutrient delivery is based upon nutritional breadth. And the only framework I've ever come across that provides nutritional breadth is the 6 taste model. Okay. It also comes with the benefit of being, dosha balancing. Okay, yeah, the doshas are kind of the mind body constitutions of Ayurveda. By using the 6 tastes, we keep the doshas, we keep our physiology in balance. Okay, so what we eat. So if we're attending to our emotional and mental well-being through the emotional mastery techniques, we're nourishing the body, we're putting an abundance of health promoting, disease preventing compounds into our body, into our cells, day in, day out. Okay, that's transformative. Then we add in the lifestyle practices. Okay, pretty much, that's the majority of what we covered all of last week, didn't we, in terms of the self-care practices. But there's so much more than that. Okay, there's again, those of you who've joined the Ayurvedic Mentor, check out the Ayurveda for Life series, because it's all around that. Our sleeping patterns, the exercise we do, our self-care practices, oil pulling, nasha therapy, exercise, all of these kinds of things. These have to be going into our weekly schedules. Okay, we need these self-care, meditation, self-massage, yoga, all of the things we spoke about last week. Okay, that is a non-negotiable. We need those practices going into our self-care regime to harness the benefits that we spoke about, in all of the sessions last week. Okay, the next thing we need is individualized disease prevention. This is so important. Okay, because your self-care and your needs are going to look different to mine. Okay, and those of you, well, one of the things I talk about in loads of different contexts is something called the individualized health audit, and it's something that we should all be doing. Look at everyone in your family at the same level as you, or who are older than you. So siblings and cousins, parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents. What illnesses did they get? What did they die from? Okay. And try and work out your risk factors. So, for example, my risk factors, I don't really have any heart disease in my family. I don't really have any Alzheimer's in my family, but I have really high levels of cancer. So my self-care, the subtleties by which I change my diet, the herbal medicines I take, the self-care practices I use, the supplements I take, are heavily skewed towards cancer prevention because I'm at a much greater risk of dying from cancer than I am from anything else. Okay, but for you, it might be respiratory diseases, it might be Alzheimer's, it might be heart disease, it might be strokes. So if this model, a fundamental part of this model, and it's something that's not spoken about enough, is individualizing our self-care. What am I at risk of? What are my risk factors? And how do I act in a way that is evidentially going to mitigate those risks? Okay. And herbal medicines are fundamental here. Okay, so this is just a very, very simple chart. Okay, but I put here, just going back to just 3 diseases. Okay, so the trilogy of killers that I spoke about all the way through last week. Okay, everyone here, so we've got what, 40, 50 people here, about 80 to 85 to 95% of us here will die from one of those 3 diseases. We'll die of cancer, heart disease, or Alzheimer's. Okay, know your risks. Think about what your risk is. And then this, as a simple example, okay, we've covered ashwagandha as a herbal medicine last week, but I've just listed there some of the most important herbal medicines in the world: ashwagandha, amalaki, hawthornberry, turmeric, guduchi, triphala, rhodiola, and brahmi. Okay, and the little red circles mean what diseases there is evidence to show they can help prevent. So ashwagandha has proven anti-cancer benefits and proven anti-Alzheimer benefits. Okay. Triphala, look at triphala. It has proven capacity against all 3 diseases. Rhodiola, likewise. Brahmi, sorry, I don't know why the dots are missing there. Brahmi has proven cancer preventing and proven Alzheimer's preventing benefits. It's the #1 Alzheimer's preventing herbal medicine in the world. Okay, so if you know that you're a much greater risk of cancer, you might say, right, I'm going to take, 1,000 milligrams of ashwagandha, 1,000 milligrams of turmeric, and 1,000 milligrams of rhodiola, as an example. Okay, but if you were at risk of Alzheimer's, you might say, right, I'm going to take, 1,500 milligrams of ashwagandha and 1,500 milligrams of brahmi. Okay, or there's 101 combinations. Okay, but the key thing is that if we individualize, if we subtly modify our diet, if we modify the supplements we take, if we modify our lifestyle practices, and most importantly, if we customize and individualize the herbal medicines we take, our ability to either prevent or delay the onset of these kinds of illnesses that we're most at risk is profound. Okay, because all of these illnesses have a very, 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 very long latency period. Okay, which means that the time it takes for the first seed of that disease to develop to symptoms presenting can usually be kind of 8, 10, 15 years. Okay, so Alzheimer's is usually kind of 15 years. Cancer is often 8 years. So right now, I could have a little bit of plaque forming in my brain, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. And in 20 years, that will present as Alzheimer's. Okay. But in between now and then, I have the capacity to speed that up, slow it down, or reverse it. The latency period is sacrosanct because that's where we can intervene in an evidence-based capacity to stop and reverse this risk and this damage. Okay. And that's why there's that famous saying, we're not doomed from the womb to the tomb. Okay. We're not doomed from the womb to the tomb. Okay. We can inform how we live, how healthy we are, and we can help prevent these diseases. Okay. And this is a fundamental part of that. So the foundation of this all-encompassing unified framework, okay, empower our mindset, nourish ourselves with the right nutritional breadth, embed powerful self-care techniques, and individualize our herbal regimes in a way that maximize the protective impacts for us as individuals. Okay. With that foundation in place, and it's profound, we can then move up to the next level. Okay. The next level, oh, hang on. We've covered that. So the next level is something that some of you may never have heard of. So those of you here, and I know lots of people here have been in the mentor quite a while, will know a lot about is the Paleolithic genome. Okay. I don't want to spend too long talking about this because I know I don't want to keep everyone here for too long. Okay. But it's almost impossible for me to overemphasize the significance of this. Okay. And when I really began to get into this research in a very significant way about 7 or 8 years ago, all of the missing pieces in the puzzle of what accounts for perfect health were answered. All the pieces were filled in. Okay. Because briefly, the Paleolithic genome is based upon the concept of thinking about how we evolved as a species. Okay, we evolved in the wild. Okay, Homo sapiens emerged from Homo erectus about 200,000 years ago in southeastern Africa. Okay, from the moment we evolved as a unique species all the way until the Stone Age, so 10,000 years ago, we were so deeply connected with the natural world. You know, the weather, the seasons, foraging, animal tracking, understanding the stars and the moon, understanding the weather predictions. We were so in tune with the natural world, like any other animal. Okay. It's only when we became agricultural and we started living in houses, and then we fast forward to the 21st century and we spend almost all of our time indoors. Okay. We're constantly insulated from the electrical current of the earth. We're not connected to the seasons. We're not connected to the natural world all around us. Okay. And the Paleolithic genome is based upon the fact that the genome that was laid down when we evolved, the genome, our genes that control every part of our body, okay, 90% of that genome is the same genome that governed us when we were living in the wild, in tune with nature. Okay, so 90% of the genetic makeup of our bodies that inform the way every part of our body works is the same as it was when we were living 200,000 years ago in southern Africa. Okay. But think about the difference between our life now and how we are meant to be living. Okay. Electricity, working in front of computers, not moving enough, eating the wrong kind of food, high levels of stress, circadian disruption, etc., etc. Our genome doesn't know how to live like this. It doesn't recognize this way of living. It hasn't evolved because it's only been a problem for the last couple of hundred years, really. Okay, so when we are living in a way that is in conflict with our Paleolithic genome, there's such compelling evidence now to show that this is one of the primary reasons for the rapidly escalating rates of cancers and depression and inflammatory bowel diseases and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and fibromyalgia, all of these kinds of chronic diseases. Okay, because when we are living in a way that is in conflict with our Paleolithic genome, we get immune suppression, we get chronic inflammation, we get digestive dysfunction, we get fatigue, ad nauseum. Okay, so we absolutely must engage and initiate practices that kind of biohack our Paleolithic genome. And a great example of this, and I'm sure every single person here would have had an experience of this. Why is it that if you light a fire in your, you say you've got a log burner or an open fire in your house, or you light a fire pit in the garden or whatever, why is staring into fire so mesmerizing? Why is it so easy to lose ourselves in those flickering flames? Why do we find it so meditative, so relaxing? Okay, because the earliest research shows from cave paintings in France and Southern Africa that staring into fire was the first practiced ritualistic form of meditation. Okay, we associate fire with what? Safety, security, protection, warmth, light. Okay, when we were living in the wild as hunter gatherers, fire was synonymous with safety. When we stare into a fire now, the same genes kick in, and those genes say that I'm safe, I can relax, I'm secure, I'm protected, I'm warm, and we feel vital. We feel our whole body moves into the direction of health. So we must be doing things that activate our Paleolithic genome. Okay. And again, those of you who have recently joined the Ayurvedic Mentor, do check out the 12-part Paleolithic Health Plan, because it's one of the most important series in the Mentor for me. Okay. So if we've got the foundation in place, so we've got the four things we just looked at, if we're doing things that activate the Paleolithic the Paleolithic genome, which probably 80% of people in the Western world aren't doing. Okay, if ever there was an example of to be different, we have to do different, it's this. Okay, we must be triggering our Paleolithic genome. Okay, if we've got that happening, then we can move on to the next level. Okay, which is all about Hikigai and Dharma. And this was the very last piece of the puzzle that we put when my mentor, my professor, and I were kind of developing this framework, this unified framework. This was a later edition, okay, because of the newer research coming out. Okay, and it's all around you can't walk into a bookshop or Waterstones without seeing a book about Hikigai. Okay, those of you who've never come across the term Hikigai, it's a Japanese term for why I get up in the morning. What's my motivation? What's my reason for living? It correlates with the Ayurvedic concept of Dharma. Dharma means your unique purpose. Why, out of all of the people that have ever existed in the history of humanity, all of the 8 billion people alive on the planet now, every single one of us has a completely unique purpose and a completely unique skill set and a completely unique reason for being here. And if we connect with that Dharma, it's the fast track to radicalizing our health. Okay. In the Ayurvedic traditions, living your Dharma, it's called living your Dharma, living your purpose is a prerequisite. Okay, in the kind of the Ayurvedic science of longevity, it's called Kaya Kalpa. It's living, identifying your Dharma, identifying why you're here, your meaning, your purpose is as important to longevity as herbs and diet and meditation, this, that, and the other. Okay. Fast forward to the 21st century, what do we see? We see exactly the same thing, which is we know now that when we're living with a sense of meaning and purpose, okay, that could be it could be a job, it could be a passion, it could be a hobby, it could be volunteering, it could be looking after family, looking after children, doesn't matter what it is. Okay, we know it impacts upon some of the most powerful mechanisms of disease prevention and longevity that operate in the body. Okay, we know it impacts upon the way our genes express. We know it's clinically proven to slow down the rate of genetic aging. We know it increases immune function. We know it reduces the risk of things like Alzheimer's and cancer. It goes on and on and on. Okay, and it's one of the things that I have begun talking about a lot more over the last 5-7-ish years, because in my world, my background, which is cancer research, particularly exceptional cancer research. So my focus, clinically, was the study of people living with cancer who had a terminal prognosis of less than a year. So these are people that, on paper, should be dead within 1 year because their cancer was so extensive, and yet they go on to survive for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and beyond. And what they do is obviously is clinically impossible in terms of the clinical understanding, but it's obviously not impossible because it happens all the time. And my kind of passion was and still is, how do we understand how these people become exceptional, and how do we give that ability to other people? And I've seen people, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds and hundreds of exceptional cancer patients. And some of them have changed their diet, some have started using herbs, some have started meditating, some have started exercising. They've all done different bits and pieces. But clinically, the most significant predictor of exceptional survival, not just in cancer, but in any serious illness, is what? Having a sense of meaning and purpose. Okay. And I'll never forget working with someone who had stage 4 prostate cancer. Okay. And he was had a prognosis of about 15 months, and I was working with him. He was about 3 years down the line. So he was, he was an exceptional patient. And he was a very revered, kind of famous competitive vegetable grower. And he'd won every award for every vegetable except one, which was the biggest marrow. And I remember him looking in me in the eyes and saying, I refuse to die until I've grown, I think it was like a 24-inch marrow or something. And I remember his wife saying to me, every autumn when he hadn't realized that goal, she would breathe a sigh of relief because she knew that he had at least another year. And in his eyes, it was that dharma, that passion that was keeping him alive so healthily and so well, for so long after his prognosis. Okay, so we need to be living, living with dharma and purpose. Okay. And again, this is so important. The reason all of this content we're talking about has a corresponding series or course in the Ayurvedic Mentor, so that we can dive into this in more detail. Okay, so those of you who've recently joined the Mentor, the first series to check out is something called Swastha, which is about the essence of kind of what it is to be alive. And the second series there is to check out a series called Human Longevity, which is all about this. Okay, so absolutely key. Hi, Joanne. My father lived for 10 years after receiving a diagnosis for prostate cancer and given a year. So that's well and truly exceptional. And I'd love to know, Joanna, if did he have anything like that? A real burning kind of passion or meaning in his life, or a purpose in his life above and beyond just him? Like, I'd love to, that's because that's still my biggest passion, is understanding this mechanism of exceptional. So I'd love to know how your father did that, Joanna. Right, and that brings us to the top of the pyramid. Okay, so far we've got optimal nourishment, we've got emotional mastery, we've got bulletproof lifestyle, we've got individuals risk factor and customized herbal medicine, we've got the activation of the Paleolithic genome, including exercise. Okay, we've got a life filled with meaning and purpose and passion. Okay, the next part is reactive health. Okay, because even with the best self-care in the world, we all fall ill. Okay, we all fall ill sometimes, and we have to know how to react fast. Okay, it's one of the biggest messages that I'm kind of motivated to propagate, is that if every household in Britain had a basic understanding of herbal medicine and natural medicine, okay, one, it would allow our households to be healthier. Two, it would allow us to look after our family members when they fell ill. Three, it would take the pressure off of GPs. And four, it's just as effective. So think about your common household problems: insomnia, headaches, PMS, eczema, high blood pressure, headaches, whatever it may be. All of those kinds of common household problems can be evidentially managed through safe, proven natural medicines. Okay, herbal medicines, supplementation, dietary interventions, topical treatments, kitchen herbal medicine, all of these kinds of things. Okay, and one of the most powerful things we can do is, again, to do a health audit on ourselves and our family. Look at your husbands and wives and parents and children and best friends. What are your and their Achilles heel? If you're stressed or you're run down and you're going to come down with something, What are you going to come down with? Is it sinusitis? Is it a migraine? Is it neuralgia? Is it insomnia? Is it anxiety? And have the treatments ready to go. Okay, so at the first sign of symptoms, you don't have to think, oh, what am I going to do? Or, how do I manage this? At the first sign of symptoms, you can unleash the full treatment protocol. You can mobilize the dietary interventions, the herbal medicines, the tonics, the remedies, the supplements, the vitamins, whatever it may be. Okay. Again, apply this to yourself and those you love the most. What are they most at risk of if they're going to come down with something? Okay. At this time of the year, it's fundamental that we have, a home apothecary. It could just be a simple cupboard or a drawer somewhere with a ready to go box of treatments for seasonal infections. Already I got an update from the looking at the public health data. There's already an initial spike for a specific type of bacterial tonsillitis and a cough. Okay, it's only the middle end of September, and already we're seeing that first spike of seasonal infections. Colds, flus, sinusitis, tonsillitis, it's all going to start increasing. Okay, we need to be ready to act. What herbs do we need to manage these? What antibacterial herbs, antiviral herbs, immune stimulating herbs? How do we alleviate the symptoms? How do we decongest? How do we alleviate the sore throat? How do we treat these problems? Okay, because if you can do that seasonally for cold and flu, individually for your risk factors as a family, it is so empowering. Okay. And one of the things that actually Holly said years and years and years ago, which I'll never forget, was the thought of coming down with something, the thought of having a really bad headache or going through a really bad period of stress or coming down with a really bad head cold and not knowing what to do, having to just sit it out, rough it out, tough it out, and wait for your body to fix it. I can't imagine how kind of disempowering and hopeless and helpless that would feel, not knowing what to do. Whereas imagine the difference if you wake up in the morning, first sign of a sore throat, the first sign of a cold, bang, you open the drawer, you've got the andrographis, you've got the elderberry, you've got the zinc, you've got the vitamin C, you've got the ginger, you've got the thyme, you know exactly how to manage that. Imagine extrapolating that to all illnesses in the household setting. Okay. And again, that's one of the really big aspects of the Ayurvedic mental. We've got detailed plans for how you manage these ailments. We've obviously got the advice, and the support on the Facebook group. We've got all of the herbal profiles, all the dosing guides, all of the healing foods. This is how we constructed the Ayurvedic mental to be able to answer that question of how do we help people when they fall sick with common household ailments. Okay, so that's the blueprint that I live by. It's not perfect. It's impossible to be perfect. Okay, nothing is perfect. But like I said, if you look at the last 10 years of research in this area of how do we live evidentially in a way that is simple and sustainable, that is going to maximize our ability to be healthy in body and mind, fit, vital, strong, and prevent disease, that blueprint, to my mind, is the most powerful and evidence-based framework that I know of. Okay. And I was involved with it, but it was my professor who developed it. So it's not being immodest saying that. Okay. Because to my knowledge, that blueprint taps into all of the cutting edge research around how we optimize our health. Okay. And it sounds a lot because we're teasing it apart and we're breaking it down. Okay. But it's not a lot. Okay. This is what I live. We've got 3 young children, we've got the businesses, we're able to adopt this into our life. Okay. I know people, I've taught this blueprint to people for years and people can adopt it. It takes a little bit of jiggery pokery. You have to modify it and individualize it, but it's easy, it's effortless, it becomes habitual. Okay. And that's the reason that I'm so, why I said, I think, last week, which is why the Ayurvedic mentor is my biggest passion. It's the biggest part of my professional life. It's the part of my work that I'm so, excited about and I love the most because it has the capacity to empower people to live like this in the most effective way possible, in terms of the cost, in terms of the evidence, in terms of the support, in terms of the resources, in terms of the empowerment. Okay. So Like I said, doors to the Ayurvedic mentor are open. They close in 48 hours time, this time on Thursday evening. Okay. So for everyone who's here who's genuinely motivated to say, I want this solution. Okay. The Ayurvedic mentor is the solution to the question, what do I as an individual need to do to maximize my health, to feel the fittest, healthiest, happiest version of myself? Okay. The Ayurvedic mentor is the best solution that I have to that answer, to that question rather, and it's an evidence-based solution. Okay, so for anyone here who's genuinely motivated to use this opportunity to transform their health, to learn about Ayurveda, to learn about herbal medicine, to become emotionally mastered, to free their emotional resources, to be happy and contented, to increase their energy, all of these things. And it will be an absolute privilege to welcome you into the Ayurvedic Mentor before the doors close on Thursday evening. Like I said, the cost is £24.99 a month. Okay, there's no contract, there's no lock-in benefit. You can stay for a month, you can stay for a year, you could leave whenever you want. Okay, so there's no risk or there's no kind of lock-in. Okay, which allows people to test it and make sure it fits for them. Okay, so I would genuinely love to continue this journey with you. I would genuinely love to be there to help and support you. Okay, so have a think tonight about this blueprint. Look at your typical day and week. Are you doing these things? Are you developing a robust, mental health, a kind of a practice? Are you nourishing your body with great food? Are you embedding powerful self-care? And are you individualizing managing your risk factors? That's the foundation. Okay. Are you activating your Paleolithic genome? Are you living with Dharma? And do you know how to react to illnesses and household problems? Because that in that model is everything. Okay, so I hope Arlette, is the mentor group in the Facebook private group, or yeah, so the Ayurvedic Mentor has a web platform where all the resources are and all of the courses and sessions and everything, recipes, meal plans, is just the most ridiculously big library. But it also comes with a private Facebook support group like this one. So the Ayurvedic Self-Care Challenge, this Facebook page will be shut down on Thursday, but the Ayurvedic Mentor has its own Facebook page. So we have a weekly. So tomorrow, for example, so every week we have something called a weekly wisdom, a live session where we all come together as a group. Okay. They're all recorded and uploaded to the website. So tomorrow evening, is about how to cultivate youthful looking skin and healthy skin with Ayurveda. So we're looking at dietary topics, herbal medicines, topical remedies. So that's delivered via the Facebook page, but it's recorded and uploaded to the website. Okay. Um, so so we've got one more final bonus session of the self-care challenge, which will be on Thursday evening. Okay, and then the doors to the Ayurvedic self-care challenge will shut down at 10 p.m. on Thursday. And doors to the Ayurvedic mentor shut at 10 p.m. on Thursday. Okay, so that's when the whole thing ends. So for everyone who's joined the Ayurvedic Mentor recently, please do check out the platform. Do join me live tomorrow evening. Those of you who are thinking about it, you've got 48 hours. Okay, so any questions, let me know. But thank you for joining me this evening. I know it's been a bit of a longer one, but this is such important work for me, because this model is the best I know for helping people be the best versions of themselves. Okay, so a massive thank you for joining me. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening, and I will see you all soon. Cheers, guys.